Welcome everyone for an interesting webinar on the core banking modernization. So as we say, the future-proof core banking system is essential for a speed up of innovation, meeting the challenging business needs, and also accepting all the customer requirements and modernizing all the expectations. So traditional core banking, as we say, is no longer provides the required customer experience to retain and grow your existing customer base. So welcome today for an interesting webinar with a panelist across the industry. So we have Dimple DeSilva, who is the head of digital and pre-sales for MEA region. She's from Intellect Design Arena. We have Ravi Shankar. Ravi is the SVP and global head business practice and leading the banking practice in Exaware. We have Saket. Saket is leading the digital and emerging services practice in Explio. And we have Taufik, who is the head of core banking and a group head of IT in BankMed. A quick introduction for me. I'm Pankul and I'm principal at Cedar, and I'm leading the FinTech practice at Cedar. So we'll start with a webinar moving on the Intellect Design Arena. Dimple will take a lead to brief us on how the core banking of the future looks like. Dimple, over to you.
Thanks, Pankul. Pankul, thanks a lot for the opportunity and thanks a lot for joining. So I will just take 2 minutes before we moved to break the ice. I know you're just joining I think you must have started joining the session. So when we talk about the digital or a core banking has changed today's world because it's not core banking anymore. It is the customer. The key element today is the customer. Today, we are looking at the contextual experience. It could be retail, it could be SME, it could be corporate. It is the customer experience that what matters. And don't forget, public is very demanding today. They ask, they articulate, and they demand what you can offer beyond traditional profit making or the saving and the deposit. What can you provide beyond this? They're looking for more inclusion banking, how we can provide investing with ESG, how we can contribute to the society. It is not predominantly the good old days banking that we all used to associate with. So I'll just move, Pankaj, you can move on the slides. So today's customer is changing. It could, as I mentioned, could be retail, SME, or corporate. They have looked at, I need everything to be simple. I need you to understand me. I need you to understand my key requirement and respect me. Listen to me. So the bank, what they're demanding from the finance institutes have changed. They are more looking at for finance institutes to provide following. So Pankaj, I need some help to, yes, thank you. So as you move, there is today the banks, customer look at from the banks to be an access facilitator, advice provider, as well as finance provider, value aggregator, and consignment keeper. When it comes to consignment keeper, I'll start from the end. When you come to consignment keeper, the customer is not bothered whether my mobile app is being insecure, whether my data is insecure with the bank. It's everything they expect. They hand it over to the bank. You need to take care of everything. I'll come to you and I need to have trust on you. So don't forget the younger generation, the new gen. We need to build trust with the new gen. So the bank has to be a consignment keeper. Same way, bank has to be a value aggregator. It's not only savings deposit that we are providing to the bank customer, from the bank to the customer. You need to provide all the other lines of business, like everything in a single app. That does not mean you're just integrating with the marketplace e-commerce partner and just rendering the service. No, it just render the service and address their needs, which can come in a single app rather than having multiple 69 to 70 apps on your single mobile. Same way, you need to be a finance provider. That comes the open finance architecture. Wherever I go, whatever I purchase, the bank should be able to advise, yeah, you're running out of your cash, so I will initiate a quick loan for you. It could be through your e-commerce transaction. It could be your point of sales transaction while you're dealing with your merchant. Any kind of a spontaneously address the need. They are not bothered to call the bank, ask for a personal loan, wait, no. The bank should understand this is what today's market or a customer requires. Same way, bank to be advice provider. It's not just a PFM that you provide. Understand your cash inflow and outflow and advise where you should save, in what product you should invest. How should you manage your goals? Well, my daughter is going to school in 10 years. How you going to, where you should invest to achieve the end target? So you solid advice provider. Then comes to the access facilitator. Utility bill payments, savings, product, today's normal banking. This is what the end customer requires. Move to the SME, it's same way the SME customer also. Who can read my statement, who understand me and spontaneously provide me credit lines, support me, provide me LCs end-to-end through my single app, not visiting the branches, spending time on branches. So this is what today's world demands. So let's move to the other side. How can banks can achieve to render these services to the end customer? Let's move, Pankaj. So increase the value across the customer's lifetime. So to do so, you need to move out with a traditional core banking system. When you come, there are 3 layers in a core banking process, as you all know: the experience layer, APIs service layer, and the core engine, and the product processors or the processing layer. So the traditional layer needs to be moved away. So the most important is a contextual experience. There comes the data. When you talk about the contextual experience, it's not only the UI, UX, the looks, more than the looks, who I am, the bank should know through actual data. There comes a behavioral modeling with support of AI, ML, and intelligent analytics. Understand me well to provide me risk-based pricing, relationship-based pricing. So that creates a unique bond with the customer. Then how can I achieve this? With superior services like goal-based savings, PFM, and so on. Then comes the make it more comprehensive product processes like pricing engine, product configurator, API-driven services, yes, finance, GL, enterprise GL, and the transaction recording, audit logs. This matters for consign keeper, to be a consign keeper, along with the fraud management, transaction tracking, and with a value-added services like loyalty management across all the transaction, redemption, coupon, and so on, with across all the services. It's not only related to certain set of services. It could be the SME customer or a retail. You need to provide these unique services. So how can you achieve this? To achieve this, you need a composable solution where the actual today's world core comes into play. The 3 layer, you need to have an experience layer. It could be any experience. I should be able to quickly connect with any experience layer, which provides a UI UX. But the product processing layer has to be seamless. And comes the core processor is the transaction reporting, ledger accounting, and the EOD processing, and so on. And it all has to be API-driven composable layer, which can talk to the external fintechs or external providers like aggregators, like for an example, Talabat, Zomato, and so on. I should be able to curate and provide it through a single app. So that comes the connected ecosystem. Now comes a third, deployment. The cost of hardware is high. More than the hardware, today the maintenance cost is high. Especially when you look at all the countries, the gas crisis and all these coming in, the maintenance cost matters. So why not the application can be hosted in the cloud? Today, there are AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and so on. The system should be flexible to deploy, and system should be light. This is the key of core processors or a core banking system is all about. Today's world is changing, so you need to be very focused on what is core means. So taking that, I would like to quickly touch upon a few case studies, how Intellect has supported, you can move on. Intellect has supported the banking industry revolution. So can we move to the next bunker? Yes. So this is one of the largest banks in Europe who's focusing on the retail shopper segments. So where the key elements that we have looked at, and we have transformed the bank, which comes with the experience, API integration layer, and the core processors. Ease of onboard, seamless onboard through the customer with features like liveness check and the OCR recognition, ID reading, online real-time validation, and the risk profiling and the customer profiling, which support of behavioral modeling. Then instance loan supported with any line, as I mentioned. Borrow on my way, which I just mentioned 2 minutes ago. Then multiple real payments like multiple purpose schemes and launch like P27 ready, so on. Then the recommendation, immediate rewards, and so on with the enterprise, basically with the enterprise loyalty management engine. Then the easy savings management. Then, as I mentioned, easy shopping through the retail cards, through your mobile app, tap and pay and process your transaction, get your benefit, pay through your loyalty. So we have changed the total perception of the bank to more digital-driven bank, or the EVA feels that the bank has supported her to change her lifestyle. So that younger generation, new generation, trust have been built with the bank. So everything, wherever I go, I feel that you're there. That's the mindset we need to pass on to the customer, that cannot achieve only transforming your experience layer, that is contextual UI UX layer. It needs to be supported with the backend processors and the composable core banking system. So there is another case study I want to touch. It's for the large SME and retail. So as you all know that when we onboard retail, there's another segment, the SME segment. So we embedded them as an e-commerce partner into the single platform, where they render services to the customers. Same time, the automatically banks SME, number of SME onboarding increases. Facilitates SME, come with we provide us features like factoring and so on. So this is how we have structured and brought in the experience layer, starting with the retailer to the SME, supported by the core processor. This is what the core banking should do today. This is what we called as core banking modernization. It's very easy to be done. First, the experience layer, then the API, bring a experience API, then change the core processors, then the GL and the GL reporting layer. So it's easy to transform. So just wants to give a few glimpses of who we are. We Intellect covers almost 250 plus customers across 100 countries. And covering all the verticals of banking and the finance industry, starting with consumer banking, transaction banking, as well as treasury and risk, and covering and extending to the insurance industry. So thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dimple. It was so insightful and covering all the 5C propositions, whether it's cloud native or a connected ecosystem or a composable solution. That brings a lot of components delivering modernization to a core banking solution. Now that brings us to an interesting question. There has been talks in the industry on the term follow the core, and I would definitely like to take Taufik's view here. Taufik, the term follow the core has been used a lot recently. And what does this mean and how does this impact the banking industry? If you want to share your opinion, please, on this particular area.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. The term by itself actually will depend on every bank strategy as a whole. All right. And it's most of the cases, it's core driven. It's budget driven, customer driven. So it's totally depend on the strategy set by each client and by each bank. For example, for us in BankMed, we went through this journey 3 years ago, okay, and we implemented in multiple countries as a centralized core, where we have managed to decommission around 30 systems, legacy systems, all around the core and the management of the loans and management of trade finance and management of treasury. All of this, we managed to centralize them in a central place, which include the GL, the reporting, everything is in the one place. Both strategies eventually will work. It will depend on what's the set, what's the budget, and what's the appetite of the service you want to provide to the clients. So in any case, it is a new term being used. Overall, it will require essential changes to the systems, and it will require time to implement. So you have the option of having the core centralizing everything as a services, and you have the other options of only implementing decentralized across the systems. This is my point of view because we have went this. We as a bank chose to centralize everything in one place, and we kept our core. It is we kept our core as intact with all the client services into it.
Thank you, Taufik, for sharing your views. You may not agree to all the concepts because, again, it may be specific to a regulation, specific to a bank. So whole of the core may be applicable in one market, may not be rightly applicable in another market. We totally hear out your views and we are with you on this. So with this, we want to move the next part of our presentation, and I would hand it over to Saket. Saket is leading the digital practice in Explio, and it would be good to hear his perception and the insights around the core banking and how digital and core banking marry into the modernization from the customer point of view. Saket, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Pankaj, for the quick introduction. And I hope everybody has settled down and in a mood to listen. So, Pankaj, for some reason, the control is not working. If you could move it forward. Yeah. You could go to the next slide as well. So what we are sort of going to talk today from Explio is what we see in the market, what we have seen in the past before I was born, and what we are seeing in the market today as a sort of a gamut of options that have opened up. And if you look at today's dashboard of a CIO, it's It's extremely diverse and has a lot of more problems and solutions to look at as compared to what it was in the 2000s and 90s. That's what I would say. Too much of a overload of options, solutions, and what should I try? What should I bet on? Is becoming something that of a problem more than a solution these days. From the last 10 years or so, mobile, big data, improving customer centricity, cloud, user experience. These are areas where banks have been focusing on, trying to figure out how they can acquire customers in an easier way, online, in a smoother way. While today we look at the same problems and try to figure out why those things have not worked in the last 10 years, why some of these solutions have not actually panned out the way they should have. And then we come up with solutions like personalization, value-added services, fintech integration, open banking. And to be honest, executing all of these together is a significant challenge and is also a long go-to-market road. The go-to-market for a bank for offering a new service has become a challenge today. Next slide. This is what we look at from an Explio point of view. We look at what our customers are facing today and where they are engrossed and where their bandwidth is going today. And they come up as, previous slide, please. Yeah, they look at multiple areas where they try to invest in. Some of the CIOs try to invest in cloud. Some of them are stuck with regulation. Some of them want to upgrade their core CBS platforms, take advantage of new features. Some of them want to figure out how they can offer some services out of SaaS as a bank, new dimensions. Some of them want to go out branchless. Some of them are grappling with mergers and acquisitions, and consolidations. And some of them are trying to roll out into new markets. And these are various problems that we are already helping our customers address. But if you can go to the next slide. Next slide. But while this is happening with our traditional partners, what we look at in the Middle East, and obviously across the world, but in the Middle East, is a significant spread of new banks coming up, offering pure online services. I think there are now 20 new banks in the Middle East already servicing 15 million customers. One of those banks has already become a unicorn. And we have a traditional bank like Mashreq also offering its own new bank now. And this is something that has come up and is rapidly growing. While the traditional core banking and the traditional services still remain, there is some kind of a disruption that is happening because of the neo banking experience, which Dimple probably sort of referred to when she mentioned about experiences, customer centricity. And the new banks are probably winning the race there when it comes to being customer centric, when it comes to being focused on the new age users. So next slide, please. So I won't spend a lot of time because Dimple would have spent a lot of time on this, on what a new age customer wants. And I completely agree with her that they are looking at personalized experiences. They want us to be an advisor, consistently make useful recommendations, and have an easy way to support grievances and have an easy way to chat with the bank, have a conversation anytime, anywhere. And also make sure that we have services beyond the core banking. So what we see, a lot of our customers who are forward thinking, already moving towards or preparing for a super app strategy, where all those services beyond core banking are also integrated. The core banking remains the main hook, but along with that main hook, we bring in innovation, we bring in disruptive partners, we bring in disruptive brands in the same application. And that is something that is we see as a sunrise area from a business strategy point of view for our customers. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we looked at, we are already delivering on a couple of super apps. And what we looked at is what does it take to be a successful super app in the market. And for me, what is the most important aspect is a direct relationship with your users. Online, when you go today, banks cannot say that I'm going to use social media or Google search or SEO to acquire my users. There has to be a straight brand that comes up and says, bank has a clear direct relationship without any intermediary with the customer. Why this is important? Because if a customer actually makes a relationship with an intermediary, the chances of, and the customer stays with that intermediary for a longer time, the chances are that the intermediary is going to upsell and cross-sell additional services, which are also related to traditional banking. While the traditional banks are going to sort of get disrupted slowly if they don't make that direct relationship with the customer. They need to have a high open rate service, something like a payment. I do a payment every day. So that is where a high frequency service needs to be offered through a super app. As the super app, because of these kind of services, the super app should own the wallets of the customer. The account that is available for a customer in the bank is the key to making sure that the customer also gets some benefits because of the super app. Partnerships and openness. What we mean by this is that while the bank integrates itself with other applications, it gives out its APIs and says, hey, please integrate my services into your applications to the fintech world. The bank should also be open in integrating other services into their applications. This is where the challenge lies. The volume of services out there is huge. Number of services that you can offer is about 100, 200 services in one application. And how do we do that is the question. That is probably one of the biggest question that is faced by a person who's trying to aggregate services. And after that, there remains the question of user data. How do we collect that data? And how do we keep on building traction over a journey? And obviously, there are technical aspects, infrastructural aspects, there are design aspects for actually making a super app successful. If you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to quickly talk about one single case study where we are actually delivering on a super app for one of our customers. Here, we have the customer wants to integrate at least 70 to 80 services in a single app, where the customer has core banking and payments from their own brand. Most of the other services would be integrated either through government channels or through partners who have already built brands in those services. And this is where the customer was actually facing a challenge. If I want to integrate so many services into one single application, it's going to take me a very long time to go to market. How do I reduce this time? The estimate that the customer gave us is that I would probably take 2 to 3 years to integrate all these services together in a single platform. How can you help us cross that barrier? So we came up with a slightly interesting solution. The solution was that we modeled a customized low-code platform for the customer. This low-code platform would help the customer integrate external APIs in a low-code way. Even a product manager from the customer's office could, with a few single clicks, integrate a third-party service into their application. The front end would automatically get modified depending on the fields that are needed to integrate that service or use for that service. Still, there will be some code that needs to be written to handle the response of the service. But we have sort of managed to reduce the time to integrate a service from, say, 2 to 3 months to less than a week, which has in turn helped the customer take 40 to 50 services to the market in less than 6 months. This is a solution that resonated very well with the customer, and now the customer is sort of more confident in taking a super app into the market, and therefore has resulted in a competitive advantage for the customer. Quickly about Explio. Explio is a 15,000 member team. Previous slide, please. Yeah. Explio is a 15,000 member team spread across 30 countries, 38 nationalities, doing about $1 billion in revenue. We have a significant amount of presence in the BFSI space. Almost some of the top banking customers in the Middle East, top banking customers in Europe, top banking customers in India, probably top 10 insurance customers worldwide. Next slide, please. Pankul, next slide. Yeah, a quick look at what we can do, where we come from. Heavy functional and business acumen in areas of banking, cards and payments, treasury and capital markets, and insurance. Obviously, with a significant dash of digital services across not only development, but also quality engineering, performance engineering, data engineering, and security. We bring in an end-to-end value addition for our customers for their product development and quality assurance as well. Thank you so much, and happy to address any questions as we go forward.
So thanks, Saket, for giving us interesting insights, and the multiple neobanks coming into the market, plus also you touching upon the reduction of time, processing time from few months to few days. It's very interesting to know. With this, I am looking Taufik's response as well on the area of neobank and on the fintechs. Taufik, if you want to share your insights on how do you see fintechs and neobanks, also the area of open banking, which has been a buzzword in the industry, and how it helps the financial institutions, and also looking at a regulatory angle, considering with, let's say, a Beirut market or a Lebanon market, where the regulations are on a higher side. So I would request your view on how the fintechs, neobanks, and open banking, how does this create an impact due to regulators and the banking internal controls in place? Over to you, Taufik.
Actually, every single bank is, from technology perspective, is looking for a vivid customer service. What I mean by a vivid customer service, I mean we need to reach a stage where clients will not come to the branches anymore. Everything to be on the channels, okay, being online channels, mobile channels, even ATMs and smart ATMs is one of the channels we are considering. So this is our aim. This is most of the bank aim. Even they want to impose charges if the customer came to the branch. This is where we want to be. But in the same time, there's two factors need to be considered. One is the integration factor. Okay, we are looking forward for technology partners who will give us more services. Okay, in the same time, our abilities. We need to consider our abilities to have our infrastructure ready for this, being on two aspects, being integration and to have a core with strong APIs capabilities so that you can integrate. This is the first factor you need to consider. For us, it is there. This factor is available, and we are using it. but within our landscape of applications. We are not connected to any third-party apps or platforms at this stage. And this will lead to my second factor, which is the regulator. Okay, the regulator, it depends on each country. Okay, we still don't have any regulations related to integrate with third parties, especially that we have a very strong banking secrecy laws imposed in the country. And even if you want to go to extend your services, you need to have a regulator beside you. For example, if you want to implement wallets, if you want to implement electronic signatures, okay, all of these we don't have the capabilities now or the go-ahead from our regulators to implement. That's why having laws backing this up will have open banking up to its wide across. In other countries in the Middle East, it's opening up pretty well. Okay, in other countries it's not. I know for a fact Lebanon is not. Jordan somehow plus minus. Saudi Arabia also they are on more like Lebanon. UAE is opening up. Qatar is opening up, but the remaining will remain a challenge to implement with fintechs and to implement utmost services with the cheapest price.
Thanks, Tawfiq.
Yeah.
The regulations. Yes, Saket, over to you.
Yeah. So quickly, Tawfiq, thank you for that insight, and I agree with you. The regulation is, in some sense, a bottleneck. But I believe UAE is leading the way. And I think we will see some more traction coming up in other countries as well, as the regulation roadmap at least looks to be easing up as we go in the future. Maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, the roadmap of regulation definitely looks to opening up these regulations faster than slower, I would say.
Thanks, Saket. Thanks, Tawfiq. So with this, we move to the next section of the webinar today. And then Ravi is going to take a lead on sharing the banking practices which exist on the core banking and the digital banking. Also looking at a perspective of how the entire ecosystem works and sharing his views around. Ravi, over to you.
Thanks, Pankaj, and thank you. Thank you very much, Tawfiq, Dimple, and Saket for sharing your thoughts and views. So folks, as Dimple was mentioning, right, that there is the complex core banking that is there that gets modernized using the various the 5C model that she's talking about of taking the data to where it is. And Saket was telling us and how to do it and how the people have done it and how people have responded. And then Tawfiq said, hey, hold on, I have regulations, I have things in place, basic things in place have to come in, and then only then I can actually apply for licenses for wallets or payment gateways and stuff like that, which are much more open. In this disparate world, right, where people are moving in different speeds. It's not even 2 different speeds. It's like multi-speeds. There are markets in the same geo, which are much more open and they have a roadmap, as Saket mentioned, but there are markets which are just emerging. But then the big question is, Hollow the Core has been the de facto standard for banking and simplification of banking for about more than 10 years, as long as I can remember or recall, even more than that. So what's the next thing? Where is the core heading to? the core of the core banking. What is the future of the core? Because the core is that invisible umbrella in the bank that holds it all together. Be it your customer, be it your own employee, the banker in the bank. Banking will exist. The banks, the brick and mortar may go away, but the banker will also exist. So you need to take care of the employee there. And what is the fundamental mind share and mind shift that bankers have to go through? And what is the technology enablement that they have to be provided in order to achieve all those great things that Dimple and Saket have been talking, right? And also our banker who's on board said that, right? The services will have to be taken to the people at the point at which they are being consumed. So far, people went to the bank to draw the services. It has to be on demand where it is. And at the same time, there are tough legal, regulatory, and mandatory changes. I won't say tough, they keep evolving over a period of time, and very rightfully so. How do we leverage technology and the advances and the maturity in technology to actually make the systems very supple and flexible from behind, so that there is an attitude change, right? You don't have to comply to a regulation because you have to. You have to comply to a regulation because you want to. That's the kind of mindshare change that is being envisaged in the future of the core. So what I have here for you, here on the slide, is some of the key tenets that we are seeing as a banking team, given that we interact with customers from Australia to Canada, like east to west, west to east all the time, and we see the various trends and how these trends get implemented and the time taken for people to succeed. What we have constantly heard that people say that they want to monetize the data. People have been talking that data is the new oil, but we hardly see anybody making money out of that so far. But it is possible. How is it possible with the advent of technology, not just technology? How do you enable the banker to monetize that data to actually create upsell and cross-sell opportunities at the point of need? As Dimple rightly said, right? I have a daughter, there is education needs for her, and there's a point in time for that need. We have to tap that need, and at that time, the bank has to go to Dimple and give that particular offer, and not before or after. So those are the kind of things, the moments that matter have to be captured. So how do we do that? With the data that is currently there with the bank, when it is married to the publicly available data that is available across the board, these are the things that will enable the future of the core to actually hold everything together. Pankaj, if you go to the next slide and just quickly give a quick detail on how to get to the future of the core. There is a lot of text in the slide. Folks, the idea is, if you look, I just want to draw your attention to only one part of it. While you may have systems, to bring efficiency in operations in the core banking with composable archetypes and architectures, you have SaaS services, you have parts products, which then morph into SaaS services. All the technology is great. But if you don't have regulations, as topic says, technology may not be of great use. But the one thing that will always be able to change the core is the mindset of the banker. You see that green band in the center of the screen, it says employee centricity. If you are able to promote the mindset of a custodian very organically within the bank, so that the banker not just acts as an entrepreneur who's looking after profits for the bank, but also a custodian of the trust that people have actually put in the bank, and thereby giving them the right product at the right time by mining the data that is actually there within the bank, using all these technologies that people are talking about, whether it's a monolithic core banking system, or whether it's a very, very agile SaaS-based core banking system, or whether it's a amalgamation of everything, whether it's a digital front end, which is mobification of the apps, all that is fine. At the end of the day, if we enable the banker to have that mindset, then the fundamental problem gets solved. Technology can become a very, very good enabler. So new regulations will keep on coming. Businesses will change. The societal patterns will change. The business climate is going to change. How can we have a core, which is the future of in the future, that is adaptable to all these changes? Not just generically saying I am, flexible for any kind of change. These specific 7 changes have to be there within a bank, which is inclusive by default and secure by design. When I say inclusive by default and secure by design, what I mean is the bank needs to be very, very inclusive by being open to all the systems and the sub-services that are there outside that Saket mentioned, all the API ecosystems and things like that. That is inclusive. And secure by design is, of course, technology has to be amped up to ensure that to detect the fraud at the point of occurrence, not as an afterthought. For that, you need to invest in deep learning, machine learning. So these are the things that we look at as the future of the core. The core banking in the future, in the next 10 to 15 years, is going to emerge and evolve like that. But to do that, we cannot forget the core thing that defines the existence of the banker, the bank, and people like us is the customer. So I have a few slides I would like to quickly go through, but I, in the interest of time, I just want to leave this here as a quick passing note, right? Because the customer should not feel that, right? The bank is coming to me only when there is a profit for the bank. I can see Taufik smiling for that. And see the customer is hopping banks. Today, I have an account. My salary account is with Bank X, but I don't do any more transactions with them. I take the money there and I move it to another account, with another Bank B, and do all my transactions there simply because I feel more stickiness with the second bank. Both are on par. Both are digital banks. Both are neo banks. And this is not a hearsay story, guys. This is my own story. So that is customer centricity. Now, how do you future-proof your investments? Yes, composable architectures, all the tech geeks will tell you the good stuff on the right-hand side. But what is the future? Today, the bank is the custodian. With decentralized finance, bank will no longer be a custodian. People will be their own custodians. It will be permissionless, democratized decision-making, powered by all these great technology called blockchain. What will the bank do then? How will the core banking in the bank act then? How will you devise and design a core banking system to handle this guy who is coming in? Crowdsourced lending. These are the points to ponder. And you have to build systems that will cater to this, or in this conceptualized systems that will cater to this. You go to the next slide, Panko, if you don't mind. That is where what we say is we have to think first. We cannot just throw a machine at everything and try to connect everything. You have to think, identify pockets where there is immense value so that a guy like Taufik invests $100,000 in something, he immediately sees a return and also sees the long-term return for that viability. That is what we call machine next. And then you go on and automate what you have to automate. There's no point just throwing technology all around it. And you have to leverage the advances in machine learning and deep learning. But this is a slide I want to spend a few more minutes and then I'll quickly wrap up. Whatever technology you bring, the banker and the banker's mindset has to be changed. Technologists have to provide the banker with with a machine, which becomes the relationship between the banker and the machine is that between Calvin and Hobbes. They have to be the alter ego to each other so that their work patterns get enhanced. They don't go searching for data that is already available. Data has to be provided at the point of need. Employee centricity. Focus on the banker. The banker will start focusing on the customer. The customer will automatically start focusing on the bank. That's the model that is likely to sustain in the next 10 to 15 years, whatever style of banking that is there. Whether it's centralized banking, decentralized finance, whatever you say, this is what is going to live and pass the test of time. In our view, this is our point of view, and this is a pattern that we are seeing based on the problems that we are seeing. If you may want to go to the next slide, please. The value for money concept, right? wherein you don't try to finish your goal and provide shades of green. Again, this is the mindset within the bank that the bank needs to promote, so that they not say, sir, this is your report, this is your statement, we can't do anything, we have ticked all the boxes, this is all we can do. Instead of, what's your problem, how do I solve it? That's the mindset. Systems should aid this behavior. If systems start aiding this behavior, and then the future of the core has actually achieved its objectives. Because today technology is far advanced than what it was, say, 2 or 3 years ago. It is, I'm not talking about 5, 10 years ago. The advances and the maturity in the technology is profound. So we've had examples where we have cannibalized our own automation business or RPA business by bringing in machine learning and saying that, hey, Mr. Bank, don't spend this much money here. You spend 1/10 of the money, you actually get better turnaround time. So that's the kind of context we're talking when we talk about value for money. If you could go to the next slide, please. And Pankaj, thank you. So this is something I already spoken about. How do you monetize data? How do you actually capture the moments that matter and actually use predictive analytics and contextual intelligence powered by AI? You can actually start predicting how the bank is likely to be in the next 5 years, 15 years, or 20 years, and actually use this intelligence to build the nuances and the contours of your core. The future of the core can also be predicted. While you can predict customer behavior, which is what people are talking about now, you can also predict the future of your bank using this. There's a lot of data science model available for that. Last but not the least, I would like to conclude with the last slide, which is basically I'm requesting banks to be more open. When you think of something new, you please think, yes, you will analyze your risk profile and you will actually constantly look at your risk exposure, but build an inclusive bank, which means you take everybody along and be secure intrinsically. These are the 7 tenets we feel are going to define the future, which is the future of the core. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. So few points which you touched upon. The core of the core is customer, and the bank should be open for open banking. Very interesting. We have a question from audience, and this is related to digital and cryptocurrencies from Manish. What do you think the banking system in the Gulf could be recognizing digital cryptocurrencies in line of what the Western countries are doing? And especially when we talk of the MENA region, the trend has been that UAE initiating this kind of initiatives.
Yes.
So what is your view around the cryptocurrencies coming in line into this region?
So they are still emerging. Cryptocurrencies are still emerging. I would, if somebody's asking me, I would advocate cautious optimism. I will not go head and shoulders into this. I would like to use the underlying technology and the concept for decision making and credit scoring, but not day-to-day transactions. It's not yet prime time for day-to-day transactions, in my opinion, given the exposure and the risk profile analysis. That while everything is real time, the risk profile analysis in this is not real time yet. The day I know the risk that I'm getting into by getting into the cryptocurrency real time at the point of making the decision making, that's something that I would advocate for people to use. So that's my take. That's my personal take, based on where I am sitting and what I'm seeing.
Thank you so much, Ravi, on that. I would also like to take Taufik's view here. Taufik, on the methods, what works to modernize core and what does not work to modernize core? If you want to share your perspective on your experience of implementing a major transformation across multiple banks.
I would say the same items. You need to think. You need to think before. Okay, look at your risks. Look at your investment. Look at the outcome and the time to the market. Then start implementing. Okay, start implementing with taking into consideration always your integration capabilities, okay, and your regulatory aspects. I'm in total agreement with what been said for this. You can't rush into it. You can't rush into it. There should be a planning phase and actual design phase in place, because technology is always ahead of us. Yani if you start embarking now into an implementation of such a new thing, okay, if you take 1 year, I'm sure in this 1 year something else will pop up. Okay, this is always happening, and this is always happening, and it's a problem with long time frame of implementations. And core, for example, is not an easy thing to do if you are going to centralize and put all these applications there. So this is where I will come back to the concept of following the bank. Maybe it is a better approach than doing them all together, but putting them in chunks for people who are to go into this journey. But people who went in this journey and they had the time to do it, then it's okay. The bottom line is two aspects. Again, you to hold, plan, design, then consider integration and regulations. This is the bottom line.
Quite interesting topic. There is one more question which is coming from the audience. In a core banking implementation, especially on the BankMed, your experience, what was the highest priority while you were going through the journey? It was a new age features, it was technology, or addressing the current state requirements?
We face the biggest challenge, which is the end users and their state of mind. All right. It's a very big challenge across banks, across traditional banks, where they will try to implement what they used to have, where they will try to replicate what they used to do before. This is the biggest challenge there. And we face the problem of aged features also. So this is why in our strategy, we decided to go across 30 legacy systems, as I mentioned, and we minimized the time to market. We minimized the time in market that for our small banks, we went live and implemented first, so that we will have something in return on the investment that we did. And we kept everything until for our biggest entity in Lebanon to the end. The journey took 5 years, and we faced two major items, as I said: the end user, their requirements, their handling of the new core and the new features, and the age features. Of course, this is from software side. All right, from infrastructure side, it's a totally different ball game. We faced out of support, out of sale products, all of this we faced. The only way to do it is to shorten the timeline, try to go to market as soon as possible, then stabilize, then think again. I'm saying think again of what you want to do next.
So thank you, Tawfiq, for sharing your views. With this, even the conclusion, what we can make is the customer became the priority with the features. So again, leading down to what Ravi highlighted and other panelists highlighted. We are on the closure. We checking the time. We are almost at 1 hour time window now, and I want to thank all our panelists for sharing their views and having a very interesting discussion today. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Saket. Thank you, Dimple. Thank you, Tawfiq. It was a pleasure to have you onto the webinar today.